Hello and welcome to Axarquía y Málaga. My name is Ian and I am an English teacher in this academy. Today I would like to explain the workings of the Trinity ISE 3 speaking and listening exams to you. Okay, the ISE 3 speaking and listening exams are a communicative based exam which will assess the speaking and listening skills that a person has through an integrated approach. This integrated approach reflects how we use listening and speaking skills both together and separately in our studies and work. The integrated speaking and listening tasks reflect the kind of activities a student does in school, in college, in university, in any academic setting. And additionally, these independent listening tasks reflect the way that a student finds, selects and reports relevant and appropriate information in an educational or an academic setting. So therefore, the purpose of the exam is to assess a candidate's language skills in speaking and listening through tasks which correspond to the real life activities or the real life reasons for wishing to learn English. Okay. So what is involved in this exam? The speaking and listening exam, the testing involves 4 parts. In the first part, there is a topic task. And in the second part, there is a collaborative task. Thirdly, there will be a conversation task, and finally, an independent listening task. During the exam, the candidate will be required to display language functions. During the topic task, the collaborative task and the conversation task, the language functions that the candidate will be expected to use are the ability to initiate and maintain the conversation between themselves and the examiner, the ability to develop and to justify a particular argument or point of view, to evaluate options, to evaluate the events of the past, and to make different statements in either support or rejection of events of the past. The candidate will also be expected to use language and models of speculation and hypothesis. Throughout the conversation, the candidates will be expected to be able to use a logical structure towards moving from one point to another. This is called staging. Also, the candidate will be expected to be able to summarise points that have already been made in the conversation and summarise their general point of view. Throughout the conversation with your examiner, you will indicate to the examiner that you understand points that they are making. This could be done by asking questions or by underpinning the points from earlier within the conversation. And of course, particularly in the situation of 2 people exchanging ideas or viewpoints, the candidate will be expected to establish some sort of common ground with the examiner's point of view. So the first task will be the topic task. This is a task that will be prepared by the candidate. The subject matter is entirely the decision of the candidate. So it is recommended for candidates to choose to speak about a topic that is something that they have a very good knowledge of. The candidate will be expected to prepare a topic to deliver in a formal style, perhaps in the way that you would deliver a presentation in a university class. Yeah. The candidate is advised to prepare some notes for the examiner. For example, a bullet-pointed handout covering the main points. However, the candidate is not advised to produce a full script. The candidate will be expected to present the topic using the language functions that we've just mentioned. So therefore, in this topic, the candidate should really be able to present several different arguments or points of view, should be able to speculate, and should be able to summarise at the end. These language functions that we mentioned earlier are vital within the topic. And on completion of the delivery of the topic, the candidate will also have a discussion about the points of the topic with the examiner. So to make this clear, the candidate delivers the topic uninterrupted to the examiner, and then afterwards both parties will discuss the theme of the topic. And that is task number 1. Task 2 is the collaborative task. This task is an integrated speaking and listening task. The examiner will read a prompt. This prompt will present a dilemma or an opinion, and therefore the candidate will need to ask the examiner questions and make comments to find out more information and keep the conversation going. The prompt that the examiner delivers to the candidate is simply to start conversation. The candidate needs to make further inquiries and to control the conversation. The candidate will be expected to interact during the task, and again, the language functions that we've already discussed are vital. These language functions will constantly be being assessed by the examiner. Task 3 is the conversation task. The examiner will select one conversation subject area from the list of subject areas and ask the candidate a question or make a comment which will be designed to promote conversation between the candidate and the examiner. Again, the language functions that we've already discussed will be being assessed during this part of the exam by the examiner. The subject areas for the conversation that the examiner may wish to talk to the candidate about could be independence, ambitions, stereotypes, role models, competitiveness, young people's rights, the media, advertising, lifestyles, the arts, or the rights of the individual. These subject areas make for very broad conversation and should therefore all be something that the candidate should easily find thoughts, opinions and arguments for and to be able to develop. The conversation task, the collaborative task and the topic are given one score using 4 different criteria. The effectiveness of communication, the ability to listen in an interactive way, the control of language and also delivery. Finally, in the speaking and listening exam, there will be the independent listening task. Once the speaking part of the exam has finished, the listening task will begin. During this task, the candidate will listen to a recorded monologue twice. After the first listening, the candidate will report the gist of the recording to the examiner. After the second listening, the candidate reports the details of the recording to the examiner, including what they felt that the viewpoint of the speaker is. The candidate can take notes, but this may only be done during the second listening. The independent listening task, the focus is to test the candidates on the following: that the candidate can show that they are able to place information in a wider context, to show that a candidate can clearly distinguish between main points and sub-points and recognise the speaker's line of argument, that the candidate is able to use and understand inference of information and links between points of information that are not expressed clearly. The listening task will also test the candidate's ability to interpret the speaker's attitude. And also the candidate will be being tested on their ability to understand the meaning of unfamiliar words based on the coherent sentence that surrounds these words. The assessment of speaking and listening. Speaking tasks are assessed on the following areas of communication: communicative awareness, interactive listening, language control, and delivery. So what are these? Communicative effectiveness. The assessment of communicative effectiveness is based on three areas: the ability to fulfil the task, the appropriateness of the contributions and turn taking, and repair strategies. Okay, so this means that you are able to complete the task within the time schedule that is provided, that your contributions and your replies within any type of communication are appropriate to the question that was asked, and that the conversation is interactive between two people and not a monologue of one person. So turn taking and inviting into the conversation happens. Repair strategies means that when the conversation breaks down, or when the candidate may not be able to readily recall a particular word or phrase to mind, that they have secondary strategies in order to make the conversation stay alive. The interactive listening mark is assessed on four areas: the comprehension and relevant response, the level of understanding, the speech rate of examiner interventions, and the speed and accuracy of the response. Comprehension and relevant response. This means answering the question in the way that it was intended, understanding the question and understanding the information that is required from the speaker. The level of understanding indicates that you do not ask the examiner to re-explain things a number of times. And the speech rate of examiner interventions means that the examiner does not have to ask many questions to keep the conversation going, that the conversation is managed by the candidate. Speed and accuracy of response indicates that the conversation flows in a normal manner between two speakers. The language content is assessed on three areas: the range of vocabulary and knowledge of phrases, the accuracy and precision of the language, and how any inaccuracies that will inevitably occur affect the conversation adversely. Delivery is assessed on four areas. Intelligibility. This means, quite simply, can the examiner understand the candidate? Lexical stress and intonation is partly to do with pronunciation and partly again to do with how you stress sounds of words to make further understanding. The fluency of language and the effect on the listener, how easy you are to understand. Speaking assessment is graded on a scale of 0 to 4, with 4 signifying the best possible grades. This means if you get a 4 grade that all tasks are fulfilled very well, with all criteria being met to a high standard. Any assessment mark below 2 will be considered as a failed task. This is the end of our lesson today. In the following videos we will share more lessons. Please subscribe and watch our YouTube channel. Also, you can look up our school where we have live video conference classes and we are an examination centre. Thank you for watching and tune into our next video. Goodbye.